All right, let's see. The other one. Your volume, it's feeding back into the speaker or something.
Say my volume is?
Yeah, and you're frozen on this one too.
Well, fixing to find out how bad
I wonder if somehow your phone's still connected. It's causing a. I mean, I know it's off, but I wonder if maybe it didn't disconnect.
Hang on a minute. Mike Maynard said, no, it's working. Y'all talk about me. It might be y'all not figuring out how to work it. Can you hear me at all?
I can. Okay, yeah, it's working now. That was weird. All right. So, back to what we were talking about.
Yep.
So, we want to talk tonight about strategies and what part of that being wait times, because we've been seeing a big trend this year of people waiting less and less time. There seems to be a lot of competition amongst trackers, thinking they need to jump right on it right away, or they're not going to get tracks. And we're seeing a lot of deer being lost because of that. Do you agree, Ralph?
100%. I think that they've lost. Some people have lost the goal, which is, like I said earlier, I don't know if everybody heard it, but it was, our goal is to do whatever it takes to make the most successful recovery. And there is no question that wait times helps that. And when people put competition to get a track over that, that's where you're not being ethical to the hunter, to me.
Or the game.
Well, yeah. I think both of them go together, but yes, correct.
Yeah, and it's pretty bad. I see obviously in some of the states that we track in, we see these requests come through. We see what time they come through, and see that the person says they found gut matter, and then an hour later, the tracker is commenting on the post saying that they pushed it across the property line where they didn't have permission.
Yep.
And the person had only shot it 30 minutes before that.
Yep. I think another factor to that is using the catch dog mentality is ruining some things like that, to where they think that's going to overcome, needing to wait. Sometimes it might work out, but statistically, I don't think it works out the best.
No, I can tell you, Ralph, I've ran catch dogs, bait and catch dogs for years.
Yeah.
And, I stopped a lot of deer that probably should have never been stopped. And before we go further, I want to state that this is what we're seeing the most. We're seeing it most in the southern region, the off-lead trackers for the most part.
Yeah.
And, I've shared this time and time again. I've had some pretty rank, pretty gritty dogs over the years, and they stopped some stuff that, most wouldn't. But even then, for years and years, I didn't wait as long as I did now. And, my success rates were in the, mid to upper 50% range. And then I started practicing proper weight times, and now I'm upper 60%, 60, 66, 68, bumping 70, and I contribute that not to because I don't. My current dogs now are not as good as some of the dogs I've had in the past. I contribute it to strategic practices.
But having the little dogs, I don't have a choice. I can't I can't try to catch. I mean, got one this year, but that I still don't. I don't bend 1 minute because of that. I still try to do everything just like they're all little dogs, and we just use that in case something, that one or a few times that something's still alive after 8-10 hours on a gut shot, say. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it'll, because all we're doing is doing the best case scenario. Well, as good as I do, there's guts, whether it's liver guts, whether it's lung gut, you can hit something perfect and it go back and come out their hands, and you've hit everything known to man inside that deer. Well, you don't know all of that till all we do is, my theory is anytime guts appear, treat it like guts. And that's how I've had to with the little dogs. And I'm with you. I've got little dogs and my statistics are up in the high 60s. So I don't know. I think and some of their percentages will show it. They're not, and they're just not waiting. And I think I'll be willing to bet it's a 10 to 15% difference that wait times can help you.
Oh yeah. That may not seem like a lot, but I'm just gonna say, for example, this year I got to look somewhere in 150 range, John and I. Well, that's 15, 20 deer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's just one person now, or two people, I should say. We track together, but if you take that across the nation, or just across the southern states, how many trackers and how many deer are tracked. I mean, just in North Florida, South Georgia, there's probably been 4,000 or 5,000 deer tracked.
Yeah.
At least, I would say at least 3,000. What's that?
In the Southeast?
No, in just in North Florida and South Georgia.
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
At least 3,000. So you're talking.
Yeah.
At least 300 deer.
Yep.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
And for several years now, I've been talking about. Let me see. Dylan says, to be in the 60%, are you screening calls or taking everyone that a hunter wants you to time permitted? Taking every track we can. The only time that and I'm going to answer for myself, Dylan, the only time that I screen is if I'm just completely backed up. It's peak of the rut, and I it's not that I screen. I'm going to
prioritize.
Prioritize the tracks.
Yeah.
So I don't consider that screening per se, because I'm going to go, even if I think it's a clean miss and the people tell me I can't find any blood, I'm still going to go.
Yep. I don't screen at all.
Right.
I prioritize. If I can, it ain't that I'm not taking them. I don't have time to take them like at the beginning of the season. So we're shuffling them to somebody else that does have time, because you can't take them all down here. And half the time, half of us everybody's slammed. So it ain't even nobody to give it to. So we're all just stacked up, hoping we can get them all in a day. So.
Right. So, and I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to go on something that I know is a that I feel is without a doubt a recoverable deer before I go on that back whack. Now I'm still going to get to that back whack. I'm not going to just blow them off, but I'm going to prioritize it.
Yeah, that's prioritizing. That's not screening.
Right. But keep in mind, Dylan, we do primarily track off lead, so that's a big contributing factor to our 60+%. But even then, my on lead, which I think I've only this year maybe taken 15 tracks on lead. But even then, I'm still in that 50% range on lead. So I'm gonna talk about something that some people they think I'm wrong about, and I'm gonna explain it. Ralph, I've said for numerous years now, or several years now, whatever, I can't remember how long it was, that I like to wait on a leg shot.
Yep.
I'm not one that wants to go right away. And let me explain one reason that I like to wait. For one, I will say when I wait, or when I started waiting, my recovery rate went up. Now, some may say that, the deer stove up, this, that. This is the reason I started this. How many times have you gotten called to a track and they tell you the sign that they found, and you get there, and yes, that sign is there, but then you find more sign?
Mm-hmm.
All the time, right?
Pretty much.
So a hunter tells you, oh, we found bone. What I personally feel like most people that I talk to, the minute they hear bone, everything else goes out the window. They say, oh, it's leg shot. Well, that's true. 95, 98% of the time, that's true. But what people doesn't think about is what else was hit along with that leg. So when some people say it doesn't matter, if you go right away, if you can't stop that leg shot, you wouldn't have stopped it if you waited. Well, what if that leg shot also clipped guts or liver and you got on it right away? Well, now you ran out of real estate. You pushed it across the property line. Well, if it did happen to clip liver or guts and you did wait that 4 hours, in an off lead situation where you have a bay dog at 4 hours, you're probably going to bay that deer up. Yeah. You go in 30 minutes after, you're probably going to push that deer across the property line. So I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but the math.
Well, I found that a lot of leg shots lay down.
Right.
It's not, to me, I use the analogy all the time. I don't care what, if you get hurt, you're going to go sit down, lay down. That's all you want to do. Well, animals are the same way until you get in there and push them. Well, that first jump, if you're off lead, obviously, that first jump is critical. And so I agree 100%, but I'm a proponent of waiting, probably more so than most people. I just find it I'm relying not on the catchability of the dogs. I mean, my little dog, I'm going to go in there and silent bay. I'm going to do different things. We plan on things. I mean, a lot of times we get there and find the bone or find something that the hunter didn't find. And then all of a sudden we're revamping right on site, and we change from running 2 or 3 dogs to pulling back and just turning one dog out, because that one dog will silent bay or do something that it won't do if you've got multiple dogs. So changing your strategy during the track can happen also. And I don't know where, and I could be wrong in certain situations. I've never found where waiting was a negative. But I have found where running in quick is a negative.
Right.
And that's just, so I just don't even, running quick to some just is never part of my strategy. So it's hard for me to think that way when other people do think that way, but that's just me.
Darren Miner, I'll get your or we'll get to your question in just a minute. You know, I do want to say, Ralph, that there are times where you do run into a negative weighting, but the odds aren't very high. Yeah. And that would be where predators get to it before you recover it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this year, out of like I said, I can go back and look at all the numbers. But out of
as you say that, I said, let me say this: given predators versus wait times, I'll take the wait times because statistically the predators don't overcome that. I'll find way more deer by giving wait times than I would pushing something because I've had them hunter. We got bad coyote problems. Next thing you know, you've pushed a deer. Now you've just strung that scent for 1,000 yards versus an 80-yard track if you'd have waited a few more hours.
That's what I was about to say. And
it just
in this year, you know, like I said, I have to look at the numbers and we haven't finalized everything, but probably somewhere around 150 deer recovered. This year, not a single one predators had gotten to. Now, last year we had, go back and look, somewhere around 6, but that's 6 out of, 160, I think, 163, 167, something like that. Well, that tells you that your best odds is to wait.
Yeah.
So
I've had coyotes get on deer in less than an hour and a half. Well, there's no strategy to that. I mean,
no,
it just didn't. That's just one of the fluke things that happen, and they happen to be close by and got to it. I don't know how to overcome that. I'm not going to go jump on something an hour and a half. I'm not going to do it.
Right. So I want to go back to Darren's question. He has a couple of them here that are pretty good. Do you think if you were a full-time on-lead tracker, you would prioritize more?
Say that again now.
When he was talking about prioritizing tracks, do you think if you were a full-time on-lead tracker, you would prioritize more? Now, I'm just going to answer this real quick, Darren. It almost seems like you're using prioritize in place of screening. And maybe I'm wrong, and you can correct me if I am. I will say I started out tracking on lead, and I personally believe that everyone should start out on lead because you learn so much. But my prioritization does not change whether it's on lead or off lead. I mean, I'm still going to wait the same times.
And I'm defining when somebody says screen, like,
he said, he said, would you screen more if you were on lead?
I don't know that I would screen. Screening to me means I'm either going to take it or not take it based off of what I'm hearing. I don't think I would. I don't do it now. I don't know why being on lead would make a difference.
No, and when I did track on lead all the time, I didn't screen.
Yeah, and I don't think, I could be wrong there because I don't run on lead enough to know that. I don't know that they could run as many tracks as we can in a day. So that might come into play, but I don't think it's a screening issue. It's either taking them in order or taking location into play. So it's kind of hard to answer that, I think, because I don't know that I ever go, oh, I hear something and then I'm not going to take this one. That I just don't. I don't do that ever, so I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, when I tracked on lead all the time, I'm going regardless now. So, yeah, as far as screening, no, I would still not screen. As far as prioritizing, I would still prioritize based on I'd prioritize based on distance from me as far as location, shot placement, all those factors come into play. And I would take what I know I can get, and then even if I couldn't get to him, I'd still try to get him help.
But I don't think there's a situation that I can't handle. If I couldn't handle, say, a leg shot, and I know that it needs to be caught, and I didn't have a catch dog, well, I'm sure that could come into play and have to give it to somebody else. But I don't have that, so I don't have to do that. So I don't screen. So
right.
But
so let's go to Darren's next question. What strategy would you suggest on a leg shot for on-lead trackers that can't catch and bait or is unlikely to do? Well, this is something we hear all the time, and you've read it in certain books that says get on them right away, keep them bleeding. The chances of you catching up to that leg shot deer, getting on it right away, are slim to none. You're not going to make a leg shot deer bleed out. So my suggestion, why not wait and hope that something else was clipped? That the bullet fragmented and clipped something else, or maybe the bone was on the exit or entrance and it was quartered to or way, whatever. I personally feel like waiting is the best strategy in hopes that something else was clipped if you're a non-lead tracker, and then move slow and stealthy and hope that you can get up to it.
I have done that. Even off lead, I've done that with knowing that we were going to run into a live deer, and I'll keep toning her back, because just keeping her close to me. So being on lead, doing what you just said, gotta know you're fixing to run into something. But I haven't done it enough on lead to probably have much to say about that, because I don't have the experience of being on lead at that level.
Yeah, and Joe Tenney kind of confirmed what I just said. He said, I wait on legs. Everyone wants to keep the blood pumping. Deer rarely bleed to death, is my answer.
Correct. I find the most blood I find the most blood on leg shots, and still can't catch them.
Right.
Can't catch up to them, and they just blood slung everywhere. And I tell people all the time that the blood you see from that's bad blood, and I'd rather see a lot less good blood than a lot more out of with bad blood.
Yeah, and our team has a pretty high success rate recovering leg shot deer.
Yeah.
And most of them I could get on pretty quick, but I'm telling you, waiting has really helped us. All right, so we'll move on to Dylan's question. Average wait time during the rut. I ran everything 24 minimum during rut. Some I gave 36 to be safe. This worked out well for us in our first year. That's all dependent on ambient temperature. Plays a huge role. As far as the rut goes, during that time of the year, the vitamin K1 and K2 levels are spiked, and I've talked about this before, which is a super clotting agent. So you got that factor. It starts clotting up a lot faster because of those vitamin levels, and then also the deer produce endorphins, which is like morphine. So they're a walking trauma center, as Randy says. So with that said, during that peak of the rut, all those levels are elevated much higher. So they are able to go longer than other times of the year. So yes, the wait times increase. Now where we're at, even during the rut, on average, Ralph, I think you'd agree a gut shot is typically dead in about 6 hours here.
Yeah.
Now during the rut, especially west of you, Ralph, like in our area or Mike Alguar's our Tallahassee, Quincy, when you start getting more west and that rut is later and it's colder, you start seeing a lot more gut shot deer alive at the 8, 10, even 12-hour range. And it has more to do with that ambient temperature.
Even around here, when it gets colder, like evening hunts, it's automatic go to the next morning. I don't even hardly try to go on any at night. I just move them to the next morning just because it's cold. And even if they did die, deer's not gonna go bad.
No, so Dylan, I mean, to answer your question, I think you're on track. In your location, I think 24 to 36 is probably about right. Now I'm not going to say that I would personally wait 24 hours on a double lung, but I could see it deliver a gut where you're at 24, 36.
I don't know if I'm that patient. Whew.
Well, I guess if we had to deal with the snow and ice and
I'm
different
sure
conditions,
I'm not. Yeah, I'm just saying me. That would be tough.
Yeah. So Michael Pritz says, I've seen the leg shot deer stow up after waiting and was able to recover. And I agree with that, but I also wonder, is it really stow up, or was something else clipped and it's weaker?
Yeah.
Rarely do we cut the deer open to see.
That is true.
Let's see, let's go through. I might be missing some of this.
Where's Dylan tracking it? Jason was asking
that. Michigan. Yeah, cold, real cold.
Yeah. Don't know how y'all do it there.
Yeah, Mike Alguar said, I tracked on lead only the first 3 years. I never screened tracks. If I got in a situation where I needed backup, I would call a fellow tracker, and usually that was Kenny. Michael Beck says, where the heck is Kine, Florida? I put into Google Maps. So I've been having issues with the website. It's Kinard, Kinard. I need to go check that out. But it's in the panhandle of Florida. So if you type in Kinard, Kinard. Joe Tenney said, had a liver shot last year, still alive at 34 hours during the rut. So there you go, another cold weather tracker. Of course, right now I think the high has been in the low to mid 50s here, and I've been freezing my tail off outside.
I'm just looking at the questions, seeing if we missed it.
Yeah, so Calvin, same thing. Tracked one in the snow this season. Northern Michigan still alive 26 hours after it was shot. Cold weather is not our friend for allowing them to die.
Wow.
So Tony Hayes says, I'm amazed by the trackers with bay dogs. Has to be so much better than on lead. Yeah, so even if you take bait out of the equation, everything is so much better off lead. You take the dope off of the end of the rope, and the dogs work so much better.
Yep.
So Darren Miner says, it seems generally speaking, Southern trackers screen less and take more calls as opposed to most Northern trackers. Depending on what the tracks are, I can do about 4 in a day, unless, of course, they are 15-minute tracks, then I can do more. I will say, Darren, I used to be at that 4 a day range. Now, one thing I did learn to do, and Kim Long will tell you, she asked me how I do this. I don't spend the amount of time on a track like I used to.
Nope.
You know, don't get me wrong. I put forth every effort, but when that dog tells me this deer is not recoverable, and I know that dog, and that dog is normally right, you know, the vast majority of the time, I tell them, and I lay that out there up front. You know, Ralph, you've tracked with Dixie. You've seen it. It's super easy. She will tell you quick. She's going to run up and jump up on everyone there.
Yep. Well,
so I lay that out there up front.
Her sister Sadie, she don't come jump on you, but she's coming back and she'll stop. And sometimes I'll push her and try it again, but I've never. Once she stops, just like Dixie, you're wasting your time. You're really just doing it for presentation purposes, because you know good and well you're not going to do a darn thing. And you just try to, because if that happens quick, you don't want to leave quick, but you should, because you know it's over. But that doesn't make the hunters feel good, and half of what we do is to make them feel good about the situation. So
and what I found, they don't care whether you're out there 45 minutes or you're out there 3 hours. You know, if they're not happy at 45 minutes, they're probably not going to be happy at 3 hours. So you know what? I'm going to get out of there at the 45 minutes if I know I'm not going to do anything with it, and say, hey, if you'd like for me to call someone else, let me know. Or if you'd like to call someone else, feel free.
I can tell you, just like you, I've heard you do it when I've been out there backing you up, trying to do it, and you'll tell them, if this dog comes back, it's over. Well, same way with Sadie, and telling them ahead of time, if you know your dog well and you can kind of lay down what's going to happen. So if this happens, this is what it means. And when that happens, they just seem to be fine with it. So I've really started trying to just lay out what's going to happen best I can based off of the sign I see. And if this happens, we're just done. That's what she does. She lets me know that she cannot catch that deer. And so when you do that, that really has helped the hunters have, they're okay with it. They don't leave feeling like, crap, he didn't do anything, I'm going to call somebody else. They don't do that. And I think it really helps you, because it shows confidence, in my opinion. And when they feel like you're confident, they're okay with it. I mean, it helps that, if you've got people know you and know your dogs, that helps, obviously. But they just don't question it as much, and that's awesome.
Right. And right here what Joe Tenney said, 90% of our tracks are recovered in 45 minutes. And I'm going to add to that, or less.
Yep.
9% more recovered in an hour. And I agree with that. And when you start really letting that set in, and you start realizing, okay, I've been here an hour. Now there are times where, maybe the dog's just going slow, trying to work something out. Don't get me wrong. If the dog is continuing to work, I'm staying. But if the dog tells me, I'm done. And if they're not satisfied, hey, I'll help you get someone else. Or if I'm not satisfied, I'm going to say, hey, I really think that my dog's having a bad day. I'm going to either get another dog out of the box, or let me call someone that might be able to do something with this, because I just feel like it's worth another shot.
Yep. And I'm always, as you will know, I probably prioritize those with people that I know when they need backup. I'm coming, so we'll get that, because I feel as, what would you call it, obligated to help you with your customer as much as I do with mine. So I'm going. we will find a way to get there to back somebody up. And I would say very, very seldom does the situation change. It just confirmed things and made everybody feel even better that you did that extra, push to get something done. But we all knew it was going to be the same. I mean, I've done that with you, to where we knew before we ever went we weren't, but we had to make a good showing, and it was okay.
And I've even called you on the phone and said, Ralph, I know you're not going to be able to do anything with this, but this is a client that we really, we've done that with each other.
Oh, yeah.
I want to touch on this. Jason says, that's great advice. When the dogs come back and tell me the deer is not hurt real fast, I feel bad and just try to keep pushing them for presentation. Jason, let me tell you what's going to end up happening if it hasn't happened already, and please let me know if it has. If you push the dog, you are likely to, or you will eventually push that dog onto non-targeted game, or whether it's another deer, a hog, or an armadillo. When you push that dog, after that dog tells you, hey, there's nothing I can do here, they're going to try to hunt something to please you.
I guarantee you, mine's got enough game in them. They're going to find something before we go home.
And if you keep doing that, and that keeps happening, guess what you're doing? You're creating bad habits that you now have to train out of your dog. So keep that in mind. That's why you will not see me do that. Not anymore. I've done it in the past. I have. So
plus, due to my age, or getting up in age a little bit, those late nights need to get done quicker. That just keeping on and keeping on and keeping on, I'm the one that suffers. So there's a physical part of that to get done and get out of there. You could cut a couple hours off of your night if you'll do that, versus just keeping on and then running into late night crap. That gets old. Every year it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep. And I'll give you a prime example. I tracked one, trying to remember.
But I'm still stupid enough to back you up after midnight.
Mike Alguire and I tracked one time. And, if I remember, I can't remember whose track it was. Regardless, Mike, and I think it was mine. Anyways, Mike pushed his dogs, and ended up getting on an armadillo. Well, then he gets frustrated at his dogs. And Mike, if Mike's still on here, he'll remember this. It was in, I believe it was Osceola management area. Then he getting onto his dog, and then afterwards he's like, I got on my dog, and I'm the one that pushed it. I should have never pushed we knew we weren't going to recover that deer. So Jason did say, you are correct. They will find live deer. It's happened. He said, thank you. I will not do that anymore. So, and like Joe said, 90% of the time, a recovered deer is 45 minutes or less. So you think about all those times where you keep pushing it, you're probably getting to that 2 to 3 hour of trying to make something happen on a track. Well, if you go on 4 tracks a day, how many hours is that? That you could have saved by saying, hey, my dog is telling me we can't do anything with this, and moving on. If they call someone else, so be it. And you know what? Maybe your dog was having a bad day and maybe you missed it and they called someone else and found behind you. Guess what? It's going to happen. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
If you track long enough, a deer is going to be found behind you, whether it's by the hunters or another tracker.
Yep. And I will say this, talking about staying out late and because then being tired comes in my experience, you make bad decisions when you're tired. And I mean to the tired to where you can't keep your eyes open, but you got another track to go to. Those are the bad tracks. Those are the ones you make stupid decisions on, and I've done it. And that's when the hunter finds the deer later, or that you didn't want to complete the circle, as I preach all the time around with me and Jason and all. I'm so tired. I'm going, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and something goes wrong.
Yep.
And that I'm personally made a special effort this year, just what you were saying, not to spend as much time and to try not to make those stupid decisions because I was tired. And I actually have put tracks off to the next morning because by the end of the night, it was just stupid to continue. And so all those things, they play a factor. It ain't all just perfect every minute of every day strategy wise. Things change. And so your strategies have got to change to me, because shoot, every freaking track is a strategy in my mind. So as everything throughout that one day changes, your strategies have got to change.
That's right. Mike chimed in. He said, that was your track. The hunter didn't trust your dogs. I was actually typing that out when you brought up. I remember now. And this was a guy that I had found deer for before. That's the crazy part. And then afterwards, Mike comes out there with the same results. And then the guy says, well, I need to call so-and-so. And we were like, it was a slap in the face. And of course I called that tracker because there was another tracker that referred the track to me. And then when I got there, I realized I'd tracked for that guy before. So afterwards, I called that other tracker and I said, hey, yeah, the guy said he should have called you, that our dogs weren't worth anything, blah, blah, blah. He ended up calling that hunter and said, hey, don't bother calling me anymore if that's the way you're going to act. So, and that brings up another point that I'll get to after I answer a question that came in from Joe Tenney. It says, when you get another dog out, do they usually tell you it's not dead about the same area of the track? Most of the time, yes. Now, sometimes I do know that my dog is not performing the way it should be, and I'll go, or, maybe I have a dog in the box that is better for a certain situation, and I will swap out, and, sometimes we will recover that deer. But again, that's knowing your dogs and knowing the situations. But most of the time, it's the same thing. But having that the option of bringing out another dog, and you do it quickly, and you produce those same results, you can satisfy that hunter quicker than just sitting out there pushing a deer.
I think confidence plays the biggest role in that situation. If you're confident, it's going to show, and they're going to be happy with it.
Yep.
I don't know. I've been around people that don't act confident, and they just make excuses. That's the worst thing to do to me. And, or leave openings. Be confident. If you can't be confident, you need to work on that, because the confidence part, knowing your dog, feeling confident, telling them what's going to happen or in certain situations. And then when it happens, you look like you're a genius. Be confident. That to me is probably one of the biggest things when things are going wrong, is just be confident.
Yep, that's right. And here Mike shared another story, and I know we talked about this before. It said, just like when I called you and said, I know this deer is dead, but these dogs are not committing to it. And you showed up, found the deer just to find out we were literally standing on him and never knew it. Yeah. Again, knowing your dogs. Mike knew, he did. He called me and said, I know this deer is dead. I don't know what's going on. He pushed the dogs in every direction he could. And some reason they missed it. And I'm going to be honest. John and I got out there and our dogs missed it at first. And, well, let me phrase that. Those dogs were headed in the right direction. They did miss it. They did overshoot it. Well, that was the point when the hunter said, hey, the deer didn't go that way. I could see that from my stand. We were tired. We were frustrated. We allowed him to push us in the wrong direction. Well, guess what? We pushed it right into a friggin' big live hog. So we call it off, and I was frustrated. I was ready to be done. And Little John said, I'm going to take the dogs back in there. Goes in there, puts them back at the hit site, goes right to where he stopped us. There was the deer laying dead.
Hey, put up Michael Pritz Jr.'s, does running multiple dogs give you higher success rate? I think so.
I'm torn on that.
Yeah, I've just had it happen too many times.
I'm torn on that. And I think once you hear my response, Ralph, you're going to agree. How many times do you know, hey, I need to put one dog out in this scenario? How many times do you just turn camo out?
Certain situations all the time like that.
So,
depends on the situation.
Multiple dogs does not necessarily give you a higher success rate. It depends on the situation.
Yeah. True.
So I'm going to say,
just like I think sometimes I'll have 4, 5, 6 dogs with me, or especially if I'm running with somebody else, just like going the other way, I think hurts you. I don't like too many dogs out.
I'm more to the point now where I would rather have 1 or 2 solid dogs on the trail. Now this is off lead tracking. I would rather have 1 or 2 solid dogs on the trail and have some that I could dump the box if needed.
Yeah.
I feel like when you get too many dogs out there, you get too much competition amongst dogs. You start missing stuff. You start pressuring that deer a lot more. I've said this story last year. Otto, one of my tackles, bayed up a buck in a dang near wide open field, plantation cut pines, had the buck bayed up. We got, I think it was 53 yards away. I told the guy to shoot. He wanted to finish it off with his bow. He said he needed to be within 50 yards. I said, if we get any closer, if that deer spots us, it's over. We're not going to get this deer. Meanwhile, we had a gun. We could have finished the deer off. We get to 51 yards, and I said, shoot. About that time, the deer looks at us and gone. He says, well, if that dog could stop it, that cur dog can stop it. Never had a chance. That deer did not fear that little dog.
I have that happen a ton.
So
they'll put up with 1 tackle, and a lot of times they won't put up with 2 tackles. So sometimes 1 tackle on it is perfect.
Right. So if I had a choice, I would say I think the perfect number. So there's a question here, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that up there. Joe Tenney says, "What's the perfect amount of dogs in the truck for an off-lead tracker?" I personally feel the perfect number for off-lead, I shouldn't say perfect, but I think your best odds is 2. In most situations. More than that, you start running into some issues. Less than that, you may not stop some of them that you could with 2. Now, there are situations. Now, I'm talking just the trailing part. Now, you get one that's pretty weak and 1 or 2 can't stop it, and you can dump out 3, another 1 or 2 or 3 more. But I like 2.
Yeah, I'm 2 to 3. So, but 2. I'm doing 3. 2 of them are Teckles. One's the cur dogs. So.
I like what Darren Miner said here. As a tracker, you're the subject matter expert. Do your homework. Be confident, because most hunters don't know.
Yep. Oop. That is true.
Caleb says, I tracked one at night. The dog was so worked up. He's working in circles. Knew the deer was dead. Went back next I think he meant next morning. You go to online to the deer, and that happens. Especially we get some cold weather, and them dogs just get amped up, and they're just ready to go, and that's when they make mistakes.
I tell you another thing that we did. Me and Jason tracked together. Me and Jason Bell. We've started, instead of pulling right up or going right to hit sites, we've been walking them in 100, 200 yards to the hit site. We purposely do that. We don't want to go to it just to let our dogs burn off some of that, going, because the freaking competition level, once they run just a little bit, we can kind of slow them down a little bit. That's made a big difference this year too.
So here Jason says, I have 2, and one hunts fast and one hunts slow. Where one overshoots, my turtle dog gets us back online, and for a bay, 2 circle that deer, and I can walk in and stab him most of the time. And that's what I see a lot. When one dog gets in trouble, another dog will step in and say, "Hey, dummy, come over here." Let's see. I wanted to go back. Travis Andrews commented. Let me go back up here. See if I can find it. I don't know how far back it was.
Which one?
Travis Andrews. Oh, here it is. It says, "Is it true John Vaughn has a new jam up dog that's lights out?" Have you heard about this yet, Ralph?
No.
Remember his dog Corona?
Say that again. For some reason, you're echoing real bad.
Anyways, John, do you remember that dog?
Yep.
Well, that dog passed away, and John was tore up. Well,
yep.
Travis Andrews had a litter mate to that dog, which is a pup off of Sam. And John just got that dog.
Oh, no.
Travis worked that dog on some mock tracks when it was a young pup, and that was it. John took it on a track last night. And Tequila, which is John's main dog, they didn't start at the hit site. They started at a wound bed. Well, Tequila decided he wanted to work it all the way back to the hit site and then come back. Well, the dog's name's Bobo. That was Travis's. Bobo lines it out, starts going in the right direction. Got hung up at a road, was trying to work it out. Well, Tequila came back being slow, methodical, went across, picked it up where Bobo was struggling, and jumped the deer alive. And Bobo honored the bay and took it over. The deer turned on the afterburners, that flew by Tequila, and Bobo took over and shut it down. So John is pretty excited.
I would imagine.
he called me and he was pretty much crying. He said, I got a Corona back. Let's see. Jason Bell says, seems like I've had more hunters be way off on the direction than the direction the deer went this season. Kenny needs to research buck fever and memory loss. So Joe Tenney said, I assume 3 with each having something they are the best dog at. Yeah, I normally have at least 3 in my box. Almost always.
Yep.
Michael Beck says Dexter needs about a mile walk in to slow his pace.
Well, my dog's got short legs, so about the same.
Let's see.
So is everybody's season done up north now?
I think most are, other than I believe most.
Ours here in northeast Florida and central. I think the Panhandles goes long. Obviously, the Panhandle goes longer, but we'll be done Sunday.
Yeah.
Georgia's done. Alabama keeps going, don't they?
Not all of Georgia's done.
Another month.
There's an extended season for parts of it.
That's true. Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago. Went across the line, and I'm like, dude, the hunting season's over. We're crossing the line, but it was in that couple of counties that had the extended, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, it's kind of right here where I'm at west.
Yep.
But most everywhere is winding down. In the Panhandle, it still has over a month. Alabama is till what, mid-February. And actually, Alabama, especially around the Eufaula area, the peak of the rut's coming up.
Yeah.
Michael Pritt's still looking for a puppy if anyone has any. So it looks like I might be having an accidental litter. Dixie, we didn't know that she was in heat, and we had her in a kennel, and somehow she got out. And Brandy had let our lab out to use the bathroom that morning. And looks like they locked up. So we're about to have some pups off of a super crazy high drive lab and Dixie. Mike Alguire, you might want to check your dates on some of that. Okay, he said and archery is until the last day of the month. Okay, yeah. That's the extended season we were talking about, Mike.
Read Jason's.
Yeah. Quick Google search. When a hunter sees a large buck, their body releases a surge of adrenaline, causing physical symptoms like shaking hands, rapid heart rate, and tunnel vision, which can impair cognitive function, including memory recall.
There you go.
And which is why in our testing process, as you progress from the started season finished and a new one that's coming up, that's why, started, we show you the shot site, the direction the deer went in. The next one, we do not show you the hit site. I mean, we show you the hit site and not the direction the deer went in. Then when you get the next level, we just say it was somewhere in this area. And that's preparing you for the reality.
I'm sure we've all ran into that one. As far as
Yep.
I've had people argue with you. I mean, getting mad, arguing because they thought the deer went one way and your dog's going the other. Well, we're following the dog.
Well, speaking of Travis Andrews, I got a story on that one. Travis shoots this deer, and I was tracking it with Buddy, my old bloodhound. This was a long time ago. And Buddy's he was very slow and methodical. I mean, he had to smell every blade of grass. And he's working this trail perfect, just that old popping sound. I mean, he's nailing it. And he hits the spot and goes left. Travis says, "Deer didn't go that way." I said, "Travis, you know this dog." He said, "I don't care. The deer didn't go that way. I've seen it go this way. I'm going to go over here and look for blood." Went another 100 yards, 120 yards, and there the deer laid. The direction the dog went. Mitchell Smith said, I had people off by 100 yards this year on where the deer was standing when shot.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to train for that. I mean, we do it when someone sends us a dog for training, more so in our advanced training stuff, is we will work with the dog, but we also have to work with the handler when it comes time on how to do a controlled search with the dog and know that dog's reaction when it does lock in on that trail. And that's something we're going to be doing in some of our more hands-on stuff this year with our seminars. Last year, Ralph, I think we pretty much knocked it out of the park on a lot of this educational as far as classroom setting. Now I did add some after some of the seminars we had. I added a lot, and it got even more in depth. But this year we're going to have some more hands-on stuff, and it's going to be, stuff similar to, how do you train for this scenario? How do you train for that scenario? How do you set up that training line? So we're going to go over some more of that stuff this year.
Cool. Well, it ain't far off.
No. So speaking of that, we have the Duval Catahoula's event is coming up. Let's see. Well, it'd be February. Well, testing will be February 20th, 21st, and 22nd. He has a pile of tests lined up for us.
Yep.
I think there's right now, I believe there's 35 tests signed up. And
he probably got some more since then.
Sure. I'm sure. And that's in Louisiana. So you can reach out to Randall Duval if you'd like to get in on that. And that is going to be the event where we roll out the multiple dog off lead test. And he does have, I believe it's 4 signed up for that already. So then we have our the next event after that is going to be, well, it'd be the following weekend.
Yep.
In the Panhandle of Florida, the Florida event, where we will have a live concert. Kenzie Wheeler. If you guys have never heard Kenzie, you need to look him up. But I've been working on another test that I need to get out to our committee, and hopefully we can roll that out at that event. So you guys stay tuned on that. We got a lot of events coming up after the March 1st is the date of the seminar for the date of the seminar in the Panhandle. After that, our next one, we did have to postpone the Georgia event due to hurricane damage. We got Iowa in April. April 12th. Then we have Pennsylvania, which will be that last weekend in May. So, and then we're going to look at dates on rescheduling the Georgia one. And who knows, we may have another one or two pop up. There has been another state I've been talking to.
Cool.
So,
be busy.
Oh yeah. But I need to get off here. I need to get some rest. I'm still not feeling 100%. But
all right.
We will be back next week.
Yep. We'll see y'all later.
All right.